What's going on, guys? Tuesday morning, about 6:40 a.m., and got some questions that came in from a college student. And I like to just do these videos when I post them up live so other people get to learn from them. So this is for Javier. He's an undergrad student, and he's got 5 questions. I am going to bang these out. And maybe later on tonight, late, do a Facebook Live Q&A. Normally I'm doing them on Instagram, but either way, here it goes. All right, so question number 1. And by the way, I've done so many of these podcasts and interviews. Sometimes you could just Google Zach Even-Esh podcast or Zach Even-Esh interview, and that'll pull you up to other people who have interviewed me. So, first question, how do you manage your time, and any tips on how to maximize your day? Number 1, I wake up early. I like to wake up before the dog wants to get off the couch. I want to wake up before anybody in the house wants to do anything, so I could get, Tony Robbins called this when I learned it from him around age 20. I think I was a third-year teacher, so I would have been like 25, something like that. Called it your hour of power, and he spoke about kind of like prayer and training and meditation, kind of 3 things, 20 minutes each. For me, it's getting work done online on the computer. That could be stuff for the gym. It could be stuff for the online business, all the seminars and the consulting I do. And if it's summertime, I like to train first thing in the morning. And after 10 years, I've gone back to teaching. So I don't have normally what I used to do is after I would take the kids to school, I would drive straight to my gym. So now my schedule is so crazy that this is why you guys see me doing a lot of videos while I'm driving. So I usually hit the road around 7:20 now, and then get to work 8:30. The work day, my teaching day starts at 9 a.m. I go till 3:45. Then I drive to one of my gyms. Then I'm coaching. And if I'm not coaching, I'm usually taking my kids somewhere. So what I make sure I'm doing is that whatever I'm doing, it's got to pay off for something. Meaning, I'm not just going to sit on Instagram and scroll through. I'm not going to sit on Facebook and scroll through. If I go on Facebook, I have to provide value. If I go on Instagram, I have to share and provide value or answer questions. That's how I look at everything. And I think a lot of people are wasting time when they need to invest their time. And the simple difference is, what is wasting time? Wasting time is something that doesn't pay you back later. Investing is something that's going to pay you back later and makes you better in some shape or form. Saying what's up to some people here. Number 2, what inspired you to stay in the field of strength and conditioning instead of moving on to another health field like physical therapy or orthopedics? When you're 18 and you're being asked to figure out what to do for the rest of your life, that's pretty tricky. So number 1, I didn't have the grades to get into physical therapy school. Orthopedics was not something I was thinking about. Back then, physical therapy school had a much different outlook than it does today. Back then, you were looking at physical therapy like, people who were injured from work and teaching them how to pick up boxes. I mean, you weren't looking at physical therapy the way it is today, where you could specialize and say, I want to work with athletes. And, I went into teaching, and then the whole accident of strength and conditioning happened when one summer I wanted to train athletes out of my parents' garage as, a quote-unquote summer job. And then I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with trying to make myself better as a coach. And then I fell in love with the results I got for these kids. And then I got on a mission where I wanted to change the way athletes trained forever. So sometimes, you think you have a choice, but sometimes the world chooses for you. And, looking back now, I've seen a couple of people say how strength and conditioning is so It's just so erratic. There's so many ups and downs to it that you should have a physical therapy background as a backup, because nothing is guaranteed in the strength and conditioning field. You could have I've heard of guys who have had a contract signed, ready to go, house ready to move into, and then 2 weeks prior, the plug gets pulled. And I'm sure that happens in other industries, but the strength and conditioning industry is very erratic. And would I recommend somebody go into it? I'm not sure I would say yes to that, to be honest with you. It depends what kind of life you want to live. I think when you're in your 20s, you could travel and move to where, every university that's bumping you around. But I think the guys and the girls that are trying to have families while they're strength coaches are realizing that it's just not good for the family. Your schedule is crazy. It's almost a very inefficient profession where we're trying to see who could be there earliest, and are you there early, and are you there before everybody, and are you there after everybody? And that's why I love running my own facility. When the guys are done, they're done. We don't waste time, and I don't open up just to be open. I find the busy times of the gym, and that's when we're open. And my future is probably going to look a lot like what Dr. Ken Leisner has, where he just, he sold his gym and he just trained people out of his garage. And I see myself doing that. Like right now, I've got my VIP coaching program. It's very premium priced. It's a lot of interaction with me on a lot of interaction with me, from video feedback to checking in with you to nutrition to the mindset. And I see myself really training a small handful of people like that. Does that mean the strength and conditioning field is bad? Absolutely not. There's a lot of people crushing it, but I'll tell you, it's very stressful and very frustrating. And that's, those times that you are stressed and frustrated and whatnot, you have to be able to manage that stuff, manage your stress. Number 3, if you had a tip for your younger self, what would it be and why would it be this? I say this a lot. In my younger self, I'm talking like high school, it would be to believe. If you don't believe in yourself, then it doesn't matter how hard you work, you can't succeed. And then it's the same thing when you are, as wherever you work, or whatever business you're starting, even if you're not owning a business, if you don't believe in yourself, then you're just going to be Joe Average. You are not going to crush it. So when you believe in yourself, it completely changes your work ethic. It completely changes your ability to handle obstacles, turn those obstacles into opportunities. Those are things that just can completely change your life. The people who are quote unquote succeeding, they believe in themselves. And of course, when you believe in yourself, the world answers. And I know that sounds very woo-woo and very crazy, but when you're, down on yourself, things will build momentum in a negative fashion. So younger self is to believe. Number 4, what does one of your usual days look like? So wake up at 5:30 on average, sometimes 5 a.m., sometimes 6 a.m. 6 a.m. would be a late day. Make a cup of tea, come downstairs, do some writing, do some work, whatever that is. I've got a lot of different things online. And then 7 a.m. shower, 6:45 shower. I wake up my kids at 7 a.m., see my kids in the morning, and then I hit the road around 7:20 a.m., drive to work, which is an hour to an hour and 15 minutes without traffic. Usually try to do some sort of a live video like this. And then I'm teaching from 9 until 3:45. Then hit the road, drive to one of the gyms, coach for a few hours. If I'm not coaching, taking my kids to one of their sport practices or sport games. That is a Monday through Friday deal. I usually get home, could be 7:30, could be 9 p.m. at night. And so sometimes I'm gone for like 14 hours. So for anybody who wants to be like me, have that as a second thought. And then I make lunch for the kids at night, spend time with the family a little bit. Sometimes I have to come back down and get some work done, although I try not to do that at night, and try to get to bed by 10:30, 11 p.m. and do it all over again. And now this is kind of a very different, unique year of my life. The last 10 years was the same type of morning. Get the kids to school, go straight to my gym, train, film, create content, come home, organize all that content, update all the web type stuff, do behind the scenes work for the gym, do all these live videos, and just a lot of interacting with people, a lot of sharing content, a lot of sharing my information to try to change lives through strength, and then running the gym in the afternoon or evening, and then back to taking the kids to their sporting events. Next question. What do you look for in someone who you would hire as an intern or coach? Great question. So let me give you an example of 2 interns. One guy right now, we just hired him at our Scotch Plains location. He actually was an athlete that trained with me from middle school all the way until he left for college. And then over winter break, he asked if he could come back and just volunteer his time. So he came back. He immediately was helping kids. His energy was great. If he saw me cleaning, he began cleaning without me asking him to do stuff. I watched him wiping benches down. I watched him organizing stuff. I watched him pay attention to detail-oriented things that I do that I did not tell him to do. And he did not have to go through an internship. He was kind of interning and showing up as he wished, which was because he was just volunteering. And then one of our guys went and got a full-time job, and I invited him to take over the weekends. But he did a lot of things that was like you're either a pro or an amateur. And I was sharing resources with him, and he was devouring them and reading them and, demonstrating motivation. And now I'll tell you a story of somebody else who interned where he was very awkward to connect with. Anytime I said, you should get yourself this book, anytime you gave him a piece of advice to invest in himself, whether it was reading an article, it was like, I don't have the time for this, or I don't have the money. It was like a constant excuse for everything. It was like you could not help this guy. And he was also quite awkward in trying to communicate with the kids. He didn't know how to develop rapport, so he was a bit socially awkward, and he would not clean. He would not do anything that showed that he was trying to go, I don't want to say even above and beyond, but he did not even demonstrate that he was trying to be good, let alone great. And sometimes greatness is hard to put into words, what I'm looking for in an intern or a coach. I like to look for people that I don't have to manage, that I could share information with, and then they take it, consume it, and run with it. I look for people who have responsibility and accountability and are self-motivated. So once I start hearing excuses, and once I start seeing things like, being late, or they complete a project, but they only complete it just to the bare minimum, all of those things are red flags, and those are people I don't want to be around. Those are people that I don't want coaching the athletes of the underground, because they're not demonstrating excellence in any form. And a great coach, a good coach, Johnny Parker said this in our Strong Life podcast. He said, a good coach just coaches the weights. A great coach coaches people. And what I've always said is that you're changing lives through strength. So if you're not changing lives, then, what are you? I'm not sure what you are doing. That doesn't mean you're bad. It just means that you're really just scratching the surface, because, not too many of these kids go on to compete in college. That's kind of a fact right there. And then if you're training adults, are you able to connect with them on their level? Are you able to adjust training for them and think on your own, thinking on your feet? Like, okay, I'm training adults here. They probably don't need to be destroying themselves on squats and deadlifts. How can I modify that? What modifications are you thinking? I'll tell you what, a lot of the stuff that the Russians have done, when it was the Soviet Union. And even today, it's like, to me, I look at it like that was just common sense stuff. As much as people talk about it being science, it was common sense. So I look for common sense in a great coach. And I think that's it. So that's the last 5 questions. It may have sounded like, whoa, he doesn't really encourage strength and conditioning. I think that a lot of people, and I've heard this from strength coaches who are at the Division I university, I've been at Lehigh and Rutgers, is they say they got caught up in chasing the logo on their chest. So they were at some big university and like all the big, stuff going on. They chased that. And sometimes these smaller schools, these Division II and Division III schools, or these Division I AA or high schools, is where the beauty is at. And probably much more beauty in life balance. Because think about it. When you're a strength coach, when I was at Lehigh, I would hit the road I had to get there for 7:30. I left at 5:30 or 5:45. When I was at Rutgers, I would leave the house at 6:30. And I was always there before the coaches. Of course, they stay there later. But if you're working for the university and you're not a contractor like me, now you're also there for practice. And a strength coach doesn't have to be at every practice, but usually the coordinator says that's what you got to do. And like I said, I found it to be a very inefficient use of time. They just want you there all the time. And we're also seeing this. We're seeing multi-million dollar facilities being built. And we're seeing strength coaches who run those facilities getting paid, below average. Which is like, give that strength coach a raise to the equivalent of that set of bumper plates on the squat rack, or the half the price of that squat rack. And what I'm saying is, there's all this money going into the facilities. They're investing in things, but not investing in people. So my answer to you, Javier, is find a place and become part of a place that loves the people, that invests in the people, that doesn't, step over dollars to pick up pennies. That's what you want to become part of. If you could find that, you're going to be in a golden place. And what would I do if I wasn't a strength coach? That is yet to be determined. There still could be a path that I take where I pivot. Other things I want to say is that I think going independent, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, can be very powerful if you're tough, because being an entrepreneur requires a lot of grit, a lot of toughness. But invest in real estate, own the building, own, an apartment where people are paying you. Otherwise, you're paying somebody else to own their building. You're paying other people to fulfill their goals. So think about those things and find ways to educate yourself on that. Hope that works for you guys. Take it easy. UndergroundStrengthCoach.com, ZachEvanesh.com, and anybody watching, VIP coaching from a distance. Powerful stuff. Email me for details on that if you want part of my VIP coaching program. I'm out.